Welcome to the Soul Wisdom Project, the living blueprint of the soul. With me, Shakti Bottazzi, your host. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by your daily life as if something inside you is trying to get your attention? As an international teacher, shaman, and energy healer, I will bring the tools of a lifetime to guide you to explore how to live consciously, awaken your innate wisdom, integrating the design, development, and emergence of your divine blueprint. Each episode blends grounded conversation with multidimensional insight, guiding you to release old patterns, align with your higher intelligence, and live awake, aware, and fully present. The Soul Wisdom Project with me, Shakti Bottazzi, starts now. Well, welcome on this day. What a morning to be recording this in Pacific time where I live last night at 3:33 a.m. on 3/3, March 3rd. The full moon peaked with a beautiful full lunar eclipse. And that already is bringing a few of the energy shifts we're going to be speaking about today. So today's topic is about all the things that are happening in the cosmos, in the stars, in the world for all of us, because life is happening for us. And specifically, I'm going to be addressing the entrance into this new Chinese year, the year of the horse of fire, the position of Saturn and Neptune in Aries, how they entered at 0 degrees, they are now in 1 degree, what that means historically in terms of how that has affected humanity every time that has happened, what pattern is there, and how to navigate these times, because this is important for each one of us. And what I have been told by you, by my clients, my students, my friends, my family, is that, forgive me, there's been a common feeling during the month of January, almost of being stuck. I love to call it stuckedness. That feeling of time moving, but nothing happening inside you and nothing happening in our lives, like things that we wanted to happen, the beginning of the year, the movement that normally happens when we hit the new year and we cheer with champagne or bubbles, and then the new year starts and no, nothing, zilch. So eventually on February 17th, so only 2 weeks ago, because a moon cycle is 28.5 days, and last night was the full moon, so 14 days ago on February 17th, we began a new cycle in the Chinese New Year, and that is with the first new moon in Aquarius, and that happened on February 17th of the year 2026. And I want you to know, if you're listening to this, not live, but on any podcast platform, on YouTube, or even in this Transformational Talk Network platform, but at a later time, what we're sharing is going to be key for us for the next year, and also and especially for the first half of this year. So this will have an evergreen importance for you. So don't worry if you're catching this at a later date. And as I was saying, the fire horse entered this year on the 17th of February, and it arrived with this beautiful new moon in Aquarius, and also another eclipse, because eclipses come in pairs. And so that one was an annular solar eclipse that was activated from Antarctica itself, from the ice of the South Pole. And think metaphorically about this, because the ice, the snow, reflects everything. It's like a magnifying glass. And here we had this solar eclipse in this new moon. A new moon signifies the beginning of a season, the beginning of a cycle. And in this case, it's the beginning of a new moon cycle, which is 29 8.5 days, like I said, but it's also the beginning of a new full lunar year, which has 13 moons. Because 13 moons, if you multiply or add the cycles, you get 365 days. So here we had this beginning, this reset from the famous 9 cycle that we've spoken about at length, and from this number 1 year, and we've spoken about that in the prior episodes. And now, finally, this new, fresh energy of fire, where last year's serpent energy of wood, shedding, letting go, and letting go, and letting go, and letting go. Right? It's like never ending letting go. Whew, finally, we are in this year of fire. Fire naturally ignites, is the horse. It wants to take us for a ride. And it began with this eclipse in the South Pole, where the rays of the sun, it wasn't a full sun eclipse, it was an annular eclipse, so a little bit of the sun was seen, and the rays were magnified for the whole of the earth to signify, we may say, a new dawn seated at the root of our planet, the South Pole. And I know that with what is happening in the world at this moment, with all the wars and political problems, it may not seem like that's the case. And that's why I chose this topic today, to take you into a little bit of history so that you could see at the patterns of when similar things and conjunctions of Saturn and Neptune happened in the past, how that affected humanity. And that will help you, I guarantee you, to have a fresh outlook in what is happening now, and also to gain some hope for yourself, for your family, for your life. So let's dive in. New fire horse year, 17th of January. On the 20th, so 3 days after that, something beautiful and very important happened. And that was that Neptune had entered Aries from the zodiac sign of Pisces, where it had been for 16 years roughly. And on the 20th of February, Saturn enters Aries as well, coming from Pisces. And they get together at the same degree of 0 on the 26th, I believe, of February. Every one of these dates I'm mentioning to you, the solar eclipse, the new moon, the full moon, the lunar eclipse, these entrances of these planets into these new signs, are particularly activating of everything around us. We are electromagnetic beings, and things that happen that include the gravitational force of our satellite, the moon, of the earth, of the sun, of planets that are in our galaxy, all of that affects our bodies physically. Their gravitational force, their pull. On the 20th of February, all the planets were aligned in one straight row. That pulls our energy. And on top of that, there's been a lot of large solar coronal flares, like they call it, when the sun has these explosions. And that for sure affects the atmosphere of the earth, and that affects our bodies, because that is clearly electromagnetic energy shifting the atmosphere. Like, this is physical. I'm not talking about some esoteric notion. And our bodies that are not just our physical body, but this whole electromagnetic field that's around us is impacted by all of that. And that's one of the many reasons why so many of us have been feeling so tired in the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks, depending upon who you are, more or less. But there's this commonality of all of us understanding that the energies were wonky, kind of weird and comfortable. We were tired. We were a little bit out of sorts, because all of these new, I like to call them ignitions. Every time a planet shifts into something else, it's an ignition of a new energy. all of these ignitions shift from water in Pisces to fire in Aries. And in this particular case, Saturn and Neptune occupied this exact point simultaneously at 0 degrees of Aries. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So when these two big luminaries stand at 0 degrees of Aries, they are starting a new cycle of 360 plus years. This is not some 1 year thing, some seasonal thing. And the last time, like I was saying, that Saturn and Neptune both occupied this 0 degree of Aries happened in the year 4361 before Christ. So that is roughly 6,400 years ago. Can you imagine? This hasn't happened for 6,400 years. This is a huge new cycle. And within this new cycle, there are many other cycles, such as the cycle that will take Saturn to move through Aries and leave at Aries, and this cycle, which is roughly 3 years. And then we have the cycle of Neptune in Aries, and it'll take about 14 plus years to move through Aries. So we have a 14-year cycle, we have a 3-year cycle, we have a cycle of a new year, which will last a full year for the horse of fire, a full lunar year. We have all these cycles that come into being all together, one stacked on top of the other, which is very rare. Normally, we have a portal, a big portal, and then we move through that one. For example, like the 9th of September of last year, 2025, added to 9. And the 9th of the month 9 of a year adding to 9 was the famous 999 portal. Well, that portal happens once every 9 years, and that portal was right there with other things, but nothing really major happening other than the portal. Here, we're having the new Aries cycle, the new year, the new zodiac cycle, the new fire horse year, the new 6,400 year, the new 360 year, the new. Whoo, can you imagine all of these piling up? These are a lot of shakes, a lot of energy coming to shake the status quo so that something new can emerge. And I want to offer something to you because I was sitting with all of this about 3 weeks ago, just prior to the horse new year to come up. And I got this download of there's work that we all need to do. There's introspection that will support us. And I got this download to create this reflection guide. I called it the Fire Horse Reflection Guide. And I really advise you to download it and use it. You can read it. I left room in the guide to fill it in there, but you can use it as a guidance for your reflections in your journal. And it guides you through a lot of these energies that I'm describing today and that I will continue to describe through today's call, so that you can really tune into what is that for you and how is that showing up in your life and what is your unique thing that will support you through these times. You can download this reflection guide on my website, and you can go also to the episode on the Transformation Network here because the link is there. And on my website, go to theawakenpath.com. You already know that, theawakenpath.com/fire-horse. And just download it, and I hope you find it useful for you, because I have heard from many that have already gotten it that it's been quite insightful for them to move through what the guide was offering. So, moving on to this fire horse, fire, think about the element of fire. Fire brings acceleration. Fire moves fast, right? When there's a fire and it burns through a forest, it moves very fast. And every time we think of passion, we speak about the fire, and fire gains momentum. And Think about the metaphorical understanding of a horse. A horse can walk, can trot, can gallop, can jump so gracefully. Horses are graceful and powerful, and they are spiritual beings, and they're also faithful and intelligent. Well, all of this is an energetic that is available for us as this year is progressing. And for your information, every Chinese New Year, which implies an animal archetype and one of the five elements of the Chinese zodiac, repeats only once every 60 years. Another cycle, right? So the last time we had a fire horse year was in 1966. And people born in that year are known to be fiercely independent, passionate, and unconventional. And that's because they were born on a fire horse year. So if you're a mama and you're pregnant and you're about to have a baby, watch out because that baby is going to really keep you on your toes. And as I was saying, numerologically, this is year one, and the 9 year of shedding and dissolving and composting everything that no longer belongs to you has been completed. And we are now really freer to begin with a fresh new start, with all of these things supporting us, all of these planets, all of these energies, all of these conjunctions. In astrology, we speak about conjunctions when two planets are at the same degree of a zodiac, a sign, and we speak of a conjunction also when they are 1 or 2 degrees separate, but we're roughly there on the same point. So here, Saturn and Neptune meet, yes, at the 0 degrees of Aries every 6,400 years, but Saturn and Neptune meet approximately every 36 years. Because think about this, Saturn takes about 167, I think, years to go around the zodiac wheel, okay? And Saturn moves through that wheel a lot faster, about 36 years. So as Saturn is moving, imagine a circle, Saturn is moving, Saturn goes and meets Neptune again. And then Saturn keeps going and Neptune moves slowly and comes meet it again. Therefore, about every 36 years, these two meet. They not only meet like this time, which is so rare, at the 0 degree of a full new zodiac cycle, they meet in different signs in different degrees. Now, how is this impacting our lives and how it is impacting what's happening in the world and how it is impacting your own individual life? Both Saturn and Neptune are planets that are out there. They're not what are known as personal planets. They affect society and they're generational as well. And Saturn specifically represents structure, discipline, boundaries, all of the rules that have to do with living in 3D, all of the laws, such as the law of gravity and the laws of the judiciary system, all of the things that are needed in terms of boundaries and laws and structure to hold, to make possible, I should say, life on Earth. That's Saturn. Now we have Neptune. Neptune represents the principle of the utmost expression of love that we can experience as a human being. Neptune represents dreams, the dissolution of boundaries, exactly the opposite of Saturn. Saturn is putting boundaries, and Neptune is saying no boundaries, the infinite, the mystical. So when these two come together, we can have two experiences. But what they're asking of us is to bring our dreams into form. To dare, you've heard me say this in the other shows, to dare, to dream big, and then to bring it into form, to manifest it in a way that's tangible, to ground what has been up here in some kind of formless idea into something that has a form. And Aries is a fire sign. Aries is the spark of initiation. It's the beginning. Aries is the I am. Some people say Aries represents a baby, new life. And Aries is a sovereign individual. So this positioning also, like I was saying, could create two things for you. On one end, it could create this bliss of wanting everybody to get along and have a beautiful expansion thing, expression of life. And then you may have the other extreme, which is um, my boundary, my land, my house, my country, and to be totally territorial. And in between those two extremes is where healing happens and new possibilities have room for manifesting a new order, a new world, a new earth, a new way to live in on earth. This is not just a new cycle. This is a cosmic reset button being pressed at the degree of identity, autonomy, and self-determination, which is the 0 degree of Aries. I want to give you a moment to take all this in because I've just shared with you a lot of information. And I know this is one of those episodes that you probably will need to go back to, take some notes, because I'm giving you a lot of also sound, numerological, dates, time information. And therefore, I want to help you gather this. And what we're talking about is about the fire horse bringing this energy along, this energy of forward movement, ignition of fire in Aries, which is the beginning fire sign. These two luminaries that are one about dissolution of boundaries, the other one about putting boundaries, they're coming together. All of this is happening in an arc where time moves from one portal to another, to another, to another, all very compacted within less than a month. That's very profound. And it's very activating of our bodies that are a living field of life force on Earth. And all of this is showing up at a bigger level than just our families, our lives, or work. It's showing up within countries, continents, and of course, all influenced by these cosmic aligned planets or cosmic oppositions, junctions, all the things that happen in the sky that are almost like a musical harmony that is accompanying us so that we can do our part. And as much as you may think, I'm just this tiny little ant on this humongous universe, always remember that nobody can do what only you can do. There is no redundance in the universe. There's only one of you. There's only one of me. And if you feel inside that you are being called to something, that you are yearning something, know that that is information for you. Nobody else is having that kind of yearning in that way with those dreams. That is for you. That is what you're meant to do. Now, the fire horse may have you galloping before you're ready, and that's why I want to have this conversation. How do we make sure that you're ready and you don't start running away and then kicked out of the of the saddle? So, I want to offer a little bit of an insight on historically what does it look like when these planets, Saturn and Neptune, come together. What happens on Earth historically every time they come together? I told you they come together every roughly 36 years. So in a few moments, we're going to take a pause, and that's what I'm going to address with you after the break. But first, I want to know, how are you feeling right now? Because I want you to notice, what is this conversation doing for you? Are you feeling more alive? Are you leaning in? Are you curious? Are you saying, oh, no, no, no? Are you whatever it is that's going on with you, take notice because that is information for you as well. And also, I want to say to you, remember to go inside, to become curious. The One of the most powerful tools of a spiritual seeker is curiosity. Whenever something big or not big, ugly, ugly to our judgment, because there is no ugly, there is no good, there is no bad, everything just is, but we put those emotions out there. So whatever it is, the thing that is happening for you, get curious about how is this happening for you? What is in it for you? How is this serving you? Because no matter how you may think that it's something you don't want, if it's happening in your life, it's because it is serving you somehow. And it takes courage to go in and look. And a lunar eclipse like last night is the perfect energetic to support that inquiry because a lunar eclipse is about bringing light into the shadow in the emotional world. Sun, solar eclipse, different energy. Lunar eclipse like last night, it's about your emotional world. Therefore, again, I'm offering you to download this guide. The link is in this episode wherever you're going to watch it. The link is in there. If you're listening to a podcast, the link is there, or you can go to www.theawakenedpath.com/fire-horse and download it. It's free. It won't be out there a lot, this guide, because it really is useful for you now during the next month until we come up to the equinox on the 20th of March. So you want to make sure that you're doing this now at the beginning to support you in begin walking these new energies at a pace that you can handle and that you just don't shoot forward for then being stopped smack and not being able to move along. With this food for thought, use this time to download the episode, theawakenedpath.com/fire-horse. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you about what happens when these two planets, Saturn and Neptune, come together. And I'm going to give you a historical pattern so you can have a better understanding of how this happens for us now. We'll be back.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? A sign, a presence, a knowing that left you changed but unsure who would understand? I'm Gina Gale Gray, and Weird Real Life Stories is more than a show. It's a sacred space to explore the mystical, the mysterious, and the deeply personal. Each episode features true tales that awaken intuition, validate soul signs, and open hearts. And now I want to hear your story. Visit anywheremindbodysoul.com to send me a request to share your experience on this show, or discover how we can work together to explore the meaning behind it. Tune in every first and third Wednesday at noon Pacific. Let's explore this mystery together. And if you're ready to go even deeper, my channeled book with my son Spencer, Listen to the Silence, Messages and Miracles from Spencer Who Never Spoke Words, is waiting for you at listentothesilence.org.
Were you able to download the guide during the break? I really hope so, because those that have used it already have told me how valuable it has been for them. As I was saying, I want to show you the historical pattern of what happens when Saturn and Neptune come together and how this has happened in the past. I want to start with the year 1989-1990, when Saturn and Neptune were together in Capricorn. Capricorn is about institutions. And think about that time, 1989, 1990. That was the collapse of structures. It was a cycle where the systems ruled by Saturn were collapsing, and Neptune helped dissolve them. For example, in governments, institutions, authorities, what did we see during that time? We saw the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War paradigm, and major restructuring of global political power. When you look at that time, you can see that so clearly how collectively the ideologies that had defined the 20th century began dissolving. 1990, right? 10 years to the change of the century and the millennia. So the world really moved from rigid blocks to a globalized economic order. The structures cracked, but the new ones were not yet stable. So that was Capricorn, and that was the one that happened before this one. Now let's move further back. They were together in 1952, 1953 in the sign of Libra. Think about what was happening in the world at that time. It was post-Second World War. World War ended in 1945, 7 years later. Libra is all about relationships. It's all about alliances. It's all about finding that balance in the relationship, the balance of power. And this was exactly what happened during that cycle. It was a rebalancing of alliances and treaties and relationships between nations. NATO was solidifying the Korean War armistice, that was 1953. All of the geopolitical relationship restructuring that happened post-World War began to land about 1950 to 1953. It took a few years of negotiations and restructurings and all of that. And it was the early stages of what later became the European Union. So the question that the world was asking was, who are we aligned with? After the massive war trauma, diplomacy, which is Libra, finding that balance, became the new tool. That is the beauty of Saturn and Neptune playing together. Are you beginning to see what I'm trying to showcase to you? How there's this complementary energy. They seemingly look to be opposite each other because one wants the dissolution of boundaries and the other one wants the um, clearly defined boundary. But when they can dance together, what is at play is that perfect balance, how they are integrating. So in a moment, I'll tell you how that is going to play out in Aries, how they're now. But first, I want to tell you one more example. Well, one more outlook into what happened in the past. Before 1952 and 1953, that was 1917, in the sign of Leo. Leo, the lion, power, the king of the jungle. Me, the sun, right? Shining, me, the lion. Well, exactly that. That was the time, 1917, revolution of leadership cycle. It is so clear because Leo is the leader, right? Is the ruler, the sovereign power, the monarch. And so this was all about centralized authority, monarchy, sovereign power. 1917 was the Russian Revolution. And it was the collapse of the monarchies in Russia, later in Germany, and later the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And World War II peaks the chaos. Amazing, right? When you look at it from this lens, it just becomes so clear. Kings fell, charismatic revolutionary ideologies rose, authority shifted from the divine right of monarchy towards the mass political movements. All of that when Saturn and Neptune were together in the sign of Leo. Further back still, 1881, 1882 in Taurus. Taurus is all about money and resources in terms of, it's also about well-being and the well-being of the body. It's all about the well-being of the material resources. But we're talking from a standpoint that is beyond the self, like I was saying, societal and generational. So what was happening when it was in Taurus? It was a cycle of the restructuring of value because Taurus, governing money, land, resources, material stability, what showcased in the playing of Saturn and Neptune was the expansion of industrial capitalism, the consolidation of banking, the beginning of the early labor movements, and it was a time where the colonialists, unfortunately, peeked into the extraction of resources from the colonies. Not cool, but this is what happened. And in actuality, in that year, in those years during that time, the modern material economy, the one that we have been living in up until now, was beginning to be built. And it also seeded the tensions that would later erupt with the labor revolutions, global conflict, etc., just like I shared. So let's take a moment once again and think about what I just shared with you, how the different moments in which Saturn and Neptune come together. When it's in Capricorn and institutions, that's what plays out in the world. When it's in Libra, it's all about alliances, treaties. That's exactly how it played out worldwide. We're talking worldwide, right? When it was in Leo and the power, it was all about the changing of the leadership from the divine right to other revolutions and changing the balance between the divine right of being a monarch into ideologies that had to do with different types of leaderships and charismatic revolutions. And when we were talking about Taurus, like I said, was the beginning of capitalism, the beginning of the banking industry, the beginning of the industrial revolution. Well, now they're in Aries. Aries is about the self, about the identity, and it's about also, like I was sharing with you, the beginnings, new things coming up. The Aries meeting, it's a sign of the self, of the I am, of the individual. This is bringing us into a moment where we're going to reach out globally into independence, autonomy, the initiation of a different way of governance. What is being dissolved? Let's look at it from this standpoint. It's Neptune, so it's dissolving of boundaries. What is being dissolved? The illusion that your identity is defined by external structures. What's being dissolved is the idea that your power belongs to someone else. How huge is that? The idea that sovereignty is negotiable. Sovereignty is not negotiable. You are a sovereign being, but we have been living through the decades and the eons without that recollection. That was stripped from us, and we believed it in the illusion. So thank you, Neptune, for being the dissolver, all of those illusionary, disempowered beliefs and systems. And what is being restructured? The individual, you, your sense of who you are and what you're here to do. And now position this in the era of Aquarius. Now, what is the age of Aquarius all about? The age of Aquarius is no longer about gurus. It's no longer about following this charismatic leader. The age of Aquarius is about each one of us rising. Buddha used to say, I will come back in 2,500 years with you, the Bodhisattvas, so that we can all rise up from the earth together for all of humanity. Well, it is 2,500 years later, and this is the era of Aquarius, and we are the Bodhisattvas. We are those that are being called to rise up because each one of us is needed. Wow. That's powerful, isn't it? Just sit with that. Wow. And if you think back to when Saturn and Neptune met in 0 degrees of Aries, like I mentioned in the year 4,361 before Christ, that was during the age of Taurus again. Think of this, age of Taurus, about 4,400 BC, okay? Age of Egypt, the pyramids, gold, the body as a temple. Egyptians were huge about that. They were all about oils and lapis lazuli dust and coal and oh my goodness, they were all about the body as a temple and all the rituals of entombment, right? Material power concentrated in pharaohs and kings. Well, now we're in the age of Aries. War cultures, individualism, some people can call it that. Think about the age of Pisces. That was the 2000 years ago, right? From the Jesus' birth to the age of Aquarius. That was all about sacrifice, saviors, transcendence, and also Pisces. Everything was happening under the water. Nothing you could see. All of the manipulations were happening underneath, so you couldn't know what was happening. Now, the age of Aquarius, air, creative mind, technology, like we've never seen before, AI, intellectual, acute, new mind, the age of Aquarius, collective consciousness, networks, technology. We all rise as individuals. And here we are with Neptune and Saturn in Aries coming forth. How big is that when you look at it from this standpoint? My invitation of having this conversation with you today, and you can see how, regardless of the fact that today is the third of the third month of the year, and that at 3:33 Pacific time we had a lunar eclipse peaking. Beyond that, you can see how this conversation is good for the whole year. There's a lot here to unpack that will continue to affect us for years to come. As I said, Neptune has like 14 more years plus in Aries. Saturn has around 3 more years in Aries. All of what we're saying that happens with these two luminaries in Aries won't happen on day one. It takes a little bit of time for these energetics to move and shift and land where they need to land. But what's key is that while planets, this is for all of astrology, when planets are in the last degrees of a sign, 28, 29 especially, and in the first degrees of a sign, 0 and 1, the energies are enormous, magnified. And in this moment, the um, in the zodiac sign of Pisces, there's 5 planets like a stellium happening there, and there's 4 in Aries. There's all these 9 planets happening all together between Pisces and Aries. There's a lot happening within the cosmos to support us, going down, going inside, going deep, asking the questions and bring them up into the Aries birthing of, okay, I'm ready to bring this forth. That is what's happening now. We are Neptune Saturn now at 1 degree of Aries. So the collective is beginning to wake up. We are at the beginning of AI, and you can see how technology connecting us all is rampantly going fast. The divine feminine is finally rising. I'm so moved by that. That's the topic of my second book, by the way. So hang in there. It will be coming up. When sovereignty is no longer for kings, it's for everybody. And as a sovereign being, it's fundamental that you check in with you. What are your truths? What is it that you are going to hold in your sovereignty? Before I move into the last part of this episode, I want to help you so that you can take from this the most. Every 36 years, Saturn and Neptune meet, and something dissolves and something new is birthed. I shared with you how this happened with the institutions in 1989. In 1953, it was the alliances. In 1917, it was the monarchies. Well, now, 2026, it is the illusion of externalized identity. This reset, this time, because it's also the age of Aquarius, it's happening in you, in the self, in the I am. These are not the institutional parts. This is in the I am. This is huge. And of course, because we're meant to rise up, then it will happen and reflect in the institutions because we each will bring that energy that will create that new collective. Wow. Can you feel how key that is? And by the way, I want to remind you that you can write to me while I talk live. If you want me to answer questions or clarify something, by all means, send questions in live so that I can answer you live and we can have an even more empowering conversation. Now, let me tell you what 40 years on this path have shown me over and over again. And let me tell you a path where I've been, if you followed me, you know something about me. I've been through major death and rebirth cycles. I have a lot of fire in my chart. I'm personally an Aries with rising in Leo, the moon in Sagittarius. There's a lot more fire in my chart beyond that. And a year like this one, where it's so much happening in Aries, is clearly activating me a lot. And for you, you have to look at where are these planets falling with regards to your birth chart. How are they matching, right? How are they playing with where they were in your birth chart? That will tell you a lot. What I can already tell you very generically is that if you're an Aries, you are being impacted. If you're a Pisces, you are being impacted. In what precise way? It would be that we have to look at your chart specifically and look at what's happening. But just know that with all of this happening in Pisces and Aries, especially you are being impacted. But that is not just you. Everybody is. And that's why I'm mentioning this, because like I said, these two planets are not individual. They are out there, so they're affecting generations and they're affecting the societal collective, and that's why they're affecting everybody. As I was saying about the many things I learned as a phoenix that, died and rebirthed so many times, is that if you have been resisting the inner work, if you have not been able to surrender to what your soul and body have been wanting to tell you, the horse will run you over. It will not wait. This horse can take you for far, 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 far. It's a horse of fire. It can take you farther than you've ever gone, especially with all the other things going in the sky and with all the things we've come through. And that's why I'm talking to you today about this, because it's all good. You still have time to prepare your saddle and to brush the horse a little bit more and to get to know your horse and to talk to it so that you can make sure that when you're ready to ride it, it will not buck you off, because that is the danger. And I'm talking about my own experience because as an Aries, I tend to leap before I think. Anybody out there that tends to do that? Yes, that was a big learning in my life to just, you know, chomp at the bit, stay there, chomp all you want, but don't begin running before you're ready. And the truth is that Aries, regardless of what sign you are, has this tendency, this it's an activating energy. So it will have you wanting to leap before you aim or to start running before you even know where you're going. And that's why it's so key. Now you know you've been alerted to this. And because this is the year where you can dare to dream real big and you can really bring that daring dream into manifestation, I also want to tell you that if you dare to dream big and you don't take into considerations all the aspects needed for you to be able to ground that dream, then your experience could turn into a chaotic experience, just like when there's a major untamed fire, as opposed to when there is a fire on the hearth that is warm and beautiful and glowing and burning steady and doing what it has to do. Here's a vulnerable share. As a fire person, as so much fire is in my chart, in the Chinese year, I was born on the year of the dragon, so more fire, just in case you didn't know. I've learned with a lot of banging my head what it takes to use fire to warm and to aid in bringing life forth as opposed to burning. Uh, which, of course, whenever in the past I've burnt others, it wasn't because I was willing to burn. It was just me being reckless because I didn't know any better. And as you can see, there's still an emotion here because my intention was always pure. This is another thing about Aries. And again, this is for everybody, regardless of your zodiac sign. Like a baby, right? A baby is clueless. A baby can go out and, tamper on a new sand castle just because how fun it is. And, the little 7-year-old kid that just did the castle is left agog, right? Like, what was that all about? And the baby doesn't know better, but he just hurt the 7-year-old kid, right? That is also Aries energy, is the baby, is the innocence, but is also the clueless when it's not in high vibration. So let's all take that information and treasure it and put it into your own experience, into what are your dreams and how are you going to make sure you connect with this horse so that you can begin caressing, preparing the saddle, tighten it just at the right tightness and putting, the right height of everything, and then start walking, then slowly galloping, and then trotting. And then when you start galloping, whoo, you can go so far. And the others, you've heard me say this in every episode before as well, is it doesn't matter if you don't have it all figured out ahead of time. Actually, that is not how the world works. The universe, if you're living in alignment, won't necessarily give you all of the steps forward. It may allow you to vision, this is the dream, this is where I'm going, and it will allow you to aim in that direction, but it'll show you just the next best step for you to take. Potentially, it'll show you the next 1, 2, and 3 steps. If you've been doing a lot of the work, you will know better where you're heading. But the path will be shown to you as you take the path. And that's why I'm inviting you to get really honest with yourself before the gallop begins. Because another characteristic of this horse of fire is that when you're going to begin galloping, it's going to go. There's not going to stop the horse. And so you want to make sure that you're aiming in the right direction, that the horse knows where you're going, and that you and that horse are really connected. Yeah? Like a good rider. And this is one of the reasons I created the Fire Horse Reflection Guide, because I put questions in there designed to help you get honest about where you are, where you're being called to go, what still needs tending before you ask the horse to gallop. It's free. So go download it, theawakenedpath.com/fire-horse, or in the details to this episode, wherever it is that you're watching or listening. It's free. Did I say it's free? So, beloveds, all of you, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening live. Thank you for listening at a second time. Let me bring this all together as we close the show. The Fire Horse is here. Saturn and Neptune are at 1 degree of Aries. They're here to stay for a while. This is a 6,400-year reset. And this is not just that one cycle of 6,400 years. It's a cycle of 360 years for Saturn. It's a cycle of 360 years for Neptune. It's a cycle of 36 years for Saturn. It's a cycle of 1 year for the Fire Horse. It's a cycle of a new moon, a full moon. It's a cycle coming up to the next opening portal, the equinox on the 20th of March. Yet again, another refresh of this reset. This is like a huge door opening. And because we're humans, we need more than one activation to be able to incorporate it all. And that's why it's so important that you have to aim before you gallop. And you take in what we explored today. We explored how this reset may affect you. We explored the illusion of the externalized identity and the opportunity that is here for us with Saturn and Neptune coming together in Aries at the beginning of a new zodiac cycle. The self, we are being restructured. Well, we are being structured, and we have an opportunity to really become sovereign and choose. And the third aspect was, here are some tools for you to navigate all of this. Download the free guide. It's in the description to this episode as well. Aim before you gallop. Get honest with yourself. Tend to what still needs tending. These are practical ways so that you can truly take all of this energy available and you can create the life you dream. And one last thing, want to offer you, if you're wanting to jump into a multidimensional session with me because you want to have help in gaining clarity, go into my website, theawakenedpath.com, click on work with me, go to multidimensional session, and here's the key: use code FIRE111 horse to get 111 discount in a multidimensional session. And if you have any doubts about this information is also at the end of the Fire Horse Guide. Go download it, and I'm hoping that you're going to take me on to be supporting of you. There's so many other things that I can support you with. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you for joining me, Shakti Bottazzi, on the Soul Wisdom Project, remembering the living blueprint of the soul. Tune in every first and third Tuesday each month at 9 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Continue your journey of conscious embodiment, integrating the design, development, and emergence of